Hey guys and girls, hope you are all doing well today. Wanted to come on here and record this video and talk a little bit more about business. And in the last video, I talked mainly about why passion wasn't solely enough in regards to when starting a business. So if you haven't checked out that first video, definitely check that out. But for the ones that have watched it, you were probably sitting there maybe thinking like, okay, like what are some other things in regards to business I can keep in mind, or, what are some other things that he might think in regards to business? So wanted to record this video for you guys and just things that I've been thinking on the top of my head. What are the top 5 things, or what are the top 5 core aspects to keep in mind when starting a new business, a new small business? And that's what I'm kind of going to base this video around. So I'm going to give you 5 core business principles that I thought of. The first one would be to overall just assess market demand and your overall service or product market fit. So we could take all of the fancy lingo aside. At the end of the day, all that means is like, are people going to want to buy your stuff, right? So a little background on me. I've started and failed probably like 4 or 5 businesses when I was younger. I mean, I remember when I was 12 years old, I was cutting neighbors' lawns, even helping people with homework for money on the side, especially when it comes to math, because that was like the strongest subject of mine. But my first real quote unquote success of a business I ever started was actually a lawn care and landscape business. When I was in college, I started a lawn care landscape business. This was around the time when all of the, pandemic stuff happened and everything got shut down. There was nothing to do. So I went out there and I put out, hangers and flyers for lawn mowing services, landscaping, mulching, because it's something that I was somewhat passionate about, but once again, wasn't my full-blown passion, but I knew how to do it. I was good at it. And I had been doing it my whole life. And I knew that the demand was there. People pay a lot of money if you know how to do very well, pristine, clean landscape installs, mulch installs, shrub trimming, plant designs. People pay money for it. So I went out there and, long story short, I'll simplify it for you. Had some relative success, scaled it to about $250,000 in revenue over the course of 2 to 3 summers while a full-time student. And that was like my first real taste in business. And overall, I'm not going to lie, the market demand is there for landscaping and lawn care services. That is definitely, a good business model for someone who maybe isn't in college or, just wants to jump straight into a business. Dude, there's a lot of potential in small businesses like that. You can very well scale to 10K per month and things like that. Another example, right? Let's say you wanted to start a lead gen agency or a marketing agency, right? Whatever you decide to do, just make sure that the demand is there. So for instance, another thing that's actually very important, and this ties into market demand, is who are your customers, right? So if you're going to start a marketing agency, one thing to keep in mind is you want to market to people who are going to be selling to customers that have money, right? Because at the end of the day, nothing matters more than your customers, right? If you have one customer and they can pay $50 for a service and one can pay $5,000, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to think, but you would probably rather market to the one who could pay $5,000, right? So just keep that in mind. Overall, assess the demand and your service fit in the overall market. Second core principle or core aspect is going to be clear systems in place, right? There's a book called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you guys have read that or not, but I remember the exact quote, but I believe it goes something along the lines of that on your bad days, you fall to the systems you have in place, right? So if you are trying to quit, smoking cigarettes or something, if you keep cigarettes in the house, right, you're going to fall down to that bad system in place. But if you don't keep cigarettes in the house, if someone really wanted to smoke, they're going to have to get in their car, drive to the gas station, and buy cigarettes. Do you get my point? So it's the same thing with business. Your business is going to fall to the systems you have in place. There's going to be days when there's family drama. There's going to be days when you don't have the time that you want. There's going to be days when maybe this person wasn't satisfied with the service. This marketing funnel is down. That ad didn't perform like you wanted to. We spent too much money on XYZ, right? There's always going to be things that happen to you. So you got to have clear systems in place. And this is important. And the reason it's important is because if you want to scale, you need to learn the difference between the technician, the owner, and the operator. You need to learn how to delegate, right? So there's a pretty famous UK entrepreneur, Daniel Presley. Like, he has certain talents, but overall, the reason he's successful is because he just finds people that are better than him at stuff, hires them, scales, and delegates. You need to have systems in place in terms of a customer acquisition strategy, right? You have to have a system in place in terms of, like, when an inbound lead comes in, what are you going to do to qualify them? You know, are you going to call them right away? Are you going to email them? What questions are you going to ask them, right? Are you going to ask them if they're using the service already? Why are you looking to switch, right? You got to have clear systems in place. Have your accounting all straightened, your tax stuff, your financials, right? So keep that in mind, because at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter necessarily if you're the best. Like, obviously it's good, and it's a good goal to have, to be the best at what you do. But I would argue that being the best is actually not the most important, but being the most well-known is, right? This can relate to the landscaping example. This can relate to really any business. If you need your lawn cut, you don't really care who's the best at cutting the lawn. You're just going to pick up the phone and call who you know, right? So it's about being the most well-known and having the good systems in place. The third principle is consider the overall business model and how that fits into how you want your life to look like. So I brought up the landscaping already. This relates because I just overall didn't fit into what that path would have led me. Like, what I would have had to do to scale that landscaping business even further, that to me was not worth it for the life I wanted to live going forward, if that makes sense. It wasn't a model that I necessarily wanted to pursue for the rest of my life. So keep that in mind, right? If you're going to start a car wash business, right, keep in mind that if you start a car wash business, although that can be a cash flowing cow and that can be a very good model, you might have to stay local to that area for 10 to 15 years, right? So just keep that in mind. Like, when you start a business, think about what you want your life to look like and then model the business around your life. So if you want to be able to travel or you want to move across the country, maybe consider a remote business, or maybe consider a franchisee model where you can start this and then maybe open a new location in another state and then hire people to run that, right? So think about the model before you get too deep into it, right? Like when you think about starting a business, have a destination or a path you want to follow. A lot of people, you ask them, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? A lot of people can't answer that question. And it's crazy to me because that's like hopping in a car and just driving for no reason. Like, if you don't even know where you're going to go, why would you even get in the car, right? So just keep that in mind when considering the model. The fourth one is going to be always promote your brand or service, always deliver, and always build, right? Promote, deliver, and build. So overall, you know, if you're ever sitting there, because there's going to be, even though you're going to be very busy, there might be days where you're like, slow day today. I had 2 calls and I'm going to just chill for a bit. No, don't do that, right? You can always do more. There's always something to be done. Don't sit there and say, oh, I made $500 today, so I'm going to just relax. I mean, you can if you want, but keep in mind there's someone out there who's not doing that, right? So promote, always market your product, always talk about it, always network with people, always make connections. Deliver, always deliver the best service, right? You know, fulfill on the promises you made to your clients, and build, right? Always build, whether that's hiring an employee, whether that's delegating, whether that's, building a really detailed, archive of all your files in SharePoint, whether that's, scaling it even more. Like, always do those 3 things in your business and never be satisfied with where you are, because, that's how you slow down. Like, effectively, if you stop improving every day, you're actually getting worse because time is passing, right? So just keep that in mind. And then the 5th point I want to make, the 5th and final point, is that sustained consistency beats natural talent, right? Sustained consistency beats natural talent. A good example I want to bring up is, I'm not sure if you're ever seen this guy on the internet. His name's Justin Waller. He's, come onto the scene over the last couple of years, but he talks a lot about his construction business and how if he were to go back in time, he would probably have chose a different model, like a model that was more easily scalable. But he also talks about that, given the fact that he was consistent, given the fact that he didn't pivot markets, didn't pivot industries, didn't pivot to a different niche. He stuck with the construction business model, and now he's making $30 million a year at like 35 years old, right? So keep that in mind. Even if like, you know, the newest trend is like, oh, do this arbitrage, this Airbnb, or, you know, this marketing thing or this or that. If you have a business model and you truly believe in it and you can execute and you're better than most people at it and people know who you are and you're dedicated to it, stick with that model. Do not pivot all the time just because people are doing that or like it's the cool thing to do now. Now, there's nothing wrong with readjusting. Like there is going to be times where like, okay, like maybe we should pivot to this. Maybe we could readjust to this. But overall, don't fully give up your business or your business model just because things start to get hard, right? It's kind of like boxing. Like, yeah, you're going to get hit in the face. You're going to get punched. But the more you get hit in the face, then the more you know how to dodge, counterattack, deflect, right? So that you're going to always learn and always improve in the process. So overall, I wanted to go over those 5 core principles. Just to reiterate, the first one is overall just assess market demand and the demand for your service and product. Second one would be to have clear systems in place, especially when it comes to, you know, customer acquisition, marketing, and sales. And the third one is just consider the overall business model and how that will fit into your life over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. The fourth one being always promote, deliver, and build. And then the fifth and final one is sustained consistency beats natural talent. I appreciate you guys watching the video, and I look forward to dropping more videos for you guys.